Episode 51, A Father's Love. A father's love, when we hear it, is always about the sacrifices a father is willing to take for the happiness of his daughter. But for a man named Roger, what he had in mind wasn't something we would normally hear. Roger was a 35-year-old man whose wife, Riley, had just recently left him as he had failed to provide a wealthy life for her that he had promised before they got married. Roger told Riley that he would be rich one day and that one of his businesses will eventually succeed. But month after month and year after year, the hope for life of the riches turned dim. None of Roger's businesses took off. Riley began losing faith in Roger's ability, and the attraction slowly faded until there wasn't any left. After a marriage of 7 years, Riley eventually left both Roger and their young daughter. Roger was devastated. He also thought about why he couldn't ever succeed in his businesses, especially when he sees others doing it so easily. For days, Roger just sat at home, thinking about his life and how he could prove to himself and Riley that he wasn't a failure in life. Roger considered starting another business, but knew that he didn't have much money left even for his basic needs, and that he was so deeply in debt that he wouldn't be able to get another loan from the bank. Roger thought about what else he could do. That was when he recalled about hearing about many others succeeding through an alternative method. Roger knew that by going down that forbidden path, Roger would be committing a fatal sin, according to his beliefs. Roger thought about it, but felt that there was no other option. He needed to succeed, no matter how he wanted to be rich. That was all he thought about. So, one day, Roger went to the isolated village up in the mountains. It was where many had gone to before him, and all of them were leading very successful lives. He had also heard so much about the village and its doctor since he was young, but have always been warned against going to seek help from them, no matter what problems he faced in life. It is the hidden village where people believed in engaging the supernatural to solve any problems they had. And this even meant harming others to get what they want. When he arrived, Roger asked the villagers for the home of the man they called the doctor. When one of the villagers pointed to the doctor's home, it sat in a far end of the small village. The home was a small wooden hut that was surrounded with wooden picket fences and spaced out away from the rest of the other villagers' huts. Roger walked over, and once in front of the home, Roger called out, "Hi, sir. I'm here to seek your help." There was just silence, so after a couple of seconds, Roger said again, "Sir, are you there? I came all the way here for help. I really need your help." Again, there was silence. Roger just stood there, looking at the door of the wooden hut, and soon enough the door opened, and Roger began seeing a pair of wrinkly hands opening the door slowly. An elderly, frail-looking man soon appeared. Skinny and hunchbacked, the man looked at Roger without any expressions and asked, "Why do you want to be rich?" As though he already knew why Roger was there. As Roger watched the man walk towards the fence to approach him, Roger stood there and said, "I am sick of being poor and looked down upon. I want to be rich, and I will do whatever it takes." The elderly man opened the fence to let Roger in and said, "Good. Come on in." As Roger entered the hut, it felt eerie and strangely uncomfortable, even though the place looked tidy. The discomfort really made Roger feel like he wanted to leave and go back home, but Roger was on a mission. He reminded himself, I want to be rich. I want to be rich. As they sat down in the hut, the elderly man then said, to get what means a lot to you, you need to give something else that is precious to you. Are you willing to sacrifice your daughter's health in exchange for the wealth you desire? Slightly taken aback, Roger then asked, what is it that I must do? The elderly man then said, all I need is your daughter's photo. Everything else will be done. But what will happen to my daughter? Asked Roger. Don't worry, she may become slightly weak and sickly every now and then as you get rich. But you won't be in any severe pain or anything like that, explained the elderly man. Roger agreed, even though part of him was worried for his daughter's health. So, as Roger gave his daughter's photo from his smartphone to the elderly man, the ritual began. A series of odd, unexplainable practices went on for about an hour before it eventually ended. Roger was given back his smartphone and he left the village that afternoon. Weeks went by as Roger continued carrying out his business as per usual. And oddly, even though everything that he did with his businesses was the same, the customers began to come in and his businesses continued to grow. Roger was getting rich, richer than he could ever imagine. Time went by as Roger was enjoying his wealthy life, but paid little attention to his daughter. Eventually, Roger did begin to notice that his daughter was growing pale and skinnier than she ever had before, especially since she was quite beefy. Turning scrawny made it obvious to see that she had lost a lot of weight. Roger ignored the fact, remembering that it was probably just the slight ill effects that the elderly man told him about. Roger remembered how the elderly man said that his daughter wouldn't be harmed. So Roger just continued with how he was going about his everyday life. But one day, as Roger was having dinner with his daughter at their home, Roger noticed how his daughter seemed lifeless. He could see his daughter slowly scooping up her food, chewing weakly. Right as Roger was observing his daughter's movements, his daughter suddenly fell on the floor and lost consciousness. Roger was shocked as he got off his chair and held his daughter up, who laid motionless on the kitchen floor. Roger then quickly called for the ambulance, which arrived minutes later. On the way to the hospital, Roger thought to himself, what's going on? Is this because of the deal I made with the devil? I thought the elderly man said my daughter wouldn't be harmed. Roger felt a severe sense of guilt as he continued thinking while sitting outside the observation ward. Roger kept on thinking if all this was his fault, that it was his greed of getting rich that was making his daughter this way. Roger knew that he needed to find out. A couple of hours later, the doctor came out and told Roger, as how these supernatural cases usually are, that there were no medical issues with Roger's daughter. The doctor told Roger that his daughter was probably tired and needed more rest. Roger knew the situation wasn't that simple and that there's more to it. He knew that he needed to go back to the village to pay the elderly man a visit. So after he had sent his daughter home to rest, Roger went on a long drive back to the village. Once at the elderly man's home, Roger called out and said, "Sir, it's me again. I'm back. I really need your help again. It's my daughter. She's really sick." The elderly man soon came out and walked to the fence to let Roger in without saying anything else. Once they sat in the house, the elderly man asked every detail of what had happened, before again asking for the photo of Roger's daughter. The next hour was spent on a set of rituals again. Once the ritual was done, the elderly man then said, "Your daughter's illness had nothing to do with the rituals that we did. It was someone else." "What do you mean, sir?" asked Roger. "Someone is unhappy with your businesses succeeding and is envious. So they wanted to harm you. But since you are protected with my spell, the envious person's spell reached your daughter instead," explained the elderly man. Roger stayed silent and considered what he wanted to do, especially now that he had finally known how great it felt to be rich. Knowing what Roger was thinking about, the elderly man then said, "Are you sure you are willing to let your daughter just get weaker and die while you stay rich?" I don't know," said a confused Roger. "Well, I have had many people who come to me and are willing to let anything happen to their loved ones because of their love for money. It's completely up to you to decide. If we fight this spell, your daughter will be well again. But you have to give up your wealth and live the poor life that you have lived for so long. Are you willing to be looked down again in society?" asked the elderly man. After spending another 10 minutes thinking about his decision, Roger finally made his decision before leaving the village. Time went by, and soon enough, Roger got even richer than before. His daughter, meanwhile, got weaker and weaker, until one day Roger's daughter eventually passed away in her sleep. For years to come, Roger continued to think about his daughter that he sacrificed. Part of him felt the sense of guilt for letting his daughter go, but another part of him felt ever so satisfied for achieving the heights of a very wealthy man as Roger continued to indulge in everything that he always wanted in life. He had many luxury cars, had a mansion for a home, and was surrounded by many women for the rest of his life. And more importantly, he was glad that he was able to show his ex-wife that he wasn't a loser and a failure in life after all. He had it all, but of course, through the huge sacrifice he made, and showed what a father's love was for him.